The Isle of Man General Election 2021 coverage on Manx Radio.
Good evening, it's 7 o'clock. In 2 weeks' time, the chips will have fallen. We'll know who are the two MHKs for Glenfaba Peel. For tonight, Glenfaba is where we are, and Peel. Glenfaba extends down the middle section of the west coast of the Isle of Man, bordering Michael to the north, Middle to the east, Rushen and Arbury, Castletown and Maloo to the south. It's made up of the parishes of German and Patrick. Glenfaba contains Tynwald Hill, arguably the most important place on the Isle of Man, where the Manx Parliament has a special open-air session once a year. Situated on the west coast, Peel is the third largest town in the Isle of Man. Some say a city. Well, it's the third largest settlement after Douglas and Ramsey, but the fourth largest settlement because Onchan, regarded as a village, has more residents. Work it out. The constituency also takes in a small part of Morown from the old Middle constituency. When the Keys was dissolved on the 12th of August, the MHKs for Glenfaba Peel were Geoffrey Boot and Ray Harmer. Our candidates tonight are Geoffrey Boot, Trevor Cowan, Tim Crookall, Leo Cussons, Ray Harmer, Mikey Lee and Kate Lord-Brennan. Mikey Lee is not with us tonight, but tonight, ladies and gentlemen, we are live at Peel Golf Club. Ladies and gentlemen, to your candidates. Geoffrey Boot, why do you want to be MHK for Glenfaba Peel?
Good evening, Andy, and good evening, everyone. It's been an honour and a privilege to serve as one of the MHKs for Glenfaba Peel for the last 5 years and as Minister for the Department of Environment and Agriculture. I live at the heart of the constituency, live and breathe the issues that affect us all and support local businesses and enterprise. I'm passionate about my current role within government, dealing with the environment, farming, fisheries and climate change particularly. I come from a varied business background and have used those skills in government to bring about change. My manifesto lays out my vision for the future. If re-elected, I will continue to work across government with fellow members, with local commissioners and listening to you, my constituents, to achieve better outcomes for everyone across the island, and by working together I believe that we can make the West the best.
Trevor Cowan.
Good evening, Andy, and good evening everybody in the audience. I'm well known as the man who writes letters to the papers, and I've been referred to as a campaigner for accountability and a serial petitioner of Tynwald. In fact, I believe I hold the record for the number of petitions I have submitted to Tynwald. For those voters who don't know me, I was born on Tynwald Day. All of my ancestors were Manx. I'm a true Manxman, and I'm proud to be so. I've lived in Peel for nearly 50 years with my wife, Alison, who's an active member of the community. We have 3 children and 4 wonderful grandchildren who all live on the island. Having spent the last 10 years or so fighting from the outside, I've decided to stand for election, so if elected, I can fight for what I believe from the inside, where my voice could have much more influence.
Tim Crookall.
Thank you. I was due for re-election to the Legislative Council. I was not happy and hadn't been happy for some months with this present government, and I decided I had to make a decision as to whether to let my name go forward again for re-election or not. I was I was absolutely determined that we should have better in the West, and this government wasn't performing correctly, so I thought the right thing for me to do was to stand down, think about it for 15 months, look at it from the outside, and that's why I'm standing. I'd like to let my name go forward. I've not been happy with this government. The outgoing government has been overspending. We've got longer waiting lists, we've had broken promises, minimal maintenance, and we now have a bigger public sector than we've ever had before, with an increase in salary over the last 5 years of something like £45 million. I think this government is out of touch with the people at the moment, and there's no feel-good factor on the island. There was for years.
Leo Cussons.
Faster my. I expect our political representatives to represent people. This means having the finger on the pulse. No amount of surveys or third-party reports can take away the fact of someone taking responsibility. It is this culture we must create and enable. It won't happen overnight, but it will happen if we want to. I get my points across simply with common sense and sincerity. I have been advocating these issues in public for the last 5 years as a Green Party committee member. We have made extraordinary progress. I now want to use my legal, personal and business experience skills to complete this work. For manifesto pledges to mean something, we need to work with parties that are invested in seeing the constituency succeed.
Ray Harmer.
Thank you. It's been an honour to represent and support the people of Glenfaba Peel as your elected MHK over the last 5 years. The resilience of our community and support for each other has been remarkable as we've weathered the storms of COVID and Brexit. As Policy Reform Minister, I've been looking to the future to re-energise our economy and seize new opportunities through technology and green initiatives to enable our island to flourish. While there's been much progress on many projects that I have driven, there's still so much more to do and complete. I've built relationships across the government and in local community and worked hard behind the scenes to influence to get things done. I've made vital decisions and persevered to see them come to fruition. My hope is that you'll continue to trust me to represent you well.
Kate Lord Brennan.
We need hope and change, Andy, hope and change. I'm standing so people have a distinct choice in Glenfaba Peel. It's a hugely important time ahead for us on the Isle of Man, and I feel I can play a very active and a positive role in that, so I'm prepared to do it because I'm passionate about what happens here in my home constituency. I am interested in the different communities across Glenfaba and Peel, and I can use my experience in Tynwald from my business background, but also as a working mum, and importantly as someone who cares and who challenges to make a difference as a House of Keys representative. I want to see a bright future for this island, and I'm determined in that, and we cannot mess about now. That's what motivates me. We need a change in Manx politics, the way that government works to deliver. I'm genuinely passionate about seeing things change and improve for people.
OK, let's start at the bottom. Why is there sewage in Peel Bay, and what do you think should be done about it? Leo Cousins.
So, the fundamental issue with the Peel, obviously, with the problem that's existed, and it goes back really about 15 years, or even 20 years, that we haven't been able to obviously achieve this, is down to, in my opinion, down to culture and delivery of these projects. If the culture, I mean, we only have to look at delivery of anything by the MUA or any infrastructure projects, they are not delivered within time, on budget, within any of our expectations, anywhere near any of our expectations. So you need the executive to hold, the political representative to hold the executive accountable and to create an environment in these organisations that people want to work. And it's not just in this organisation, it's in a lot of organisations that people don't feel that it works for them.
OK, Tim Crookall.
Well, we know why it hasn't gone through last time, because of the planning issue with the inspector. He was going to refuse it, so the MUA withdrew it. You know, and there are various issues why it didn't happen in the past before that. We now absolutely need to grab this by the scruff of the neck and make sure, not only for the good of the west of the island, but for the island, as well as Laxey and Baldrine, that it happens.
Is this coming up on the doorstep?
Absolutely. Just about every doorstep is, you know, people are wanting to sort this. It's the number one issue.
Trevor Cowan.
The reason why there is sewage in Peel Bay is clearly that it isn't treated. And Tynwald and Peel Town Commissioners have been talking about building a sewage treatment works for over 10 years, but still nothing. A planning application for a sewage treatment works was submitted by the Manx Utilities in April 2019, but it was mistakenly referred to DEFA to the Council Ministers rather than the Planning Committee. Coleman appointed a planning inspector and a public inquiry was held after 20 months and after spending hundreds of thousands of pounds of taxpayers' money on preparing the application. The planning inspector's report was referred to Coleman.
Can you see a clear way through this?
Could I just finish my answer, please?
Yeah, okay.
Yeah. However, Coleman was then advised that the matter should never have been referred to in the first place. An inspector should never have been appointed, a public inquiry should never have been held, and Coleman didn't have the legal power to determine the application. Frankly, the whole situation was a complete farce. Contrary to popular belief, Coleman didn't refuse the application. It didn't make any decision on it. To avoid further legal difficulties, the MUA withdrew its application. In doing so, however, the MUA stated that the Glenfaba house site was still very much in its thinking.
Okay. Jeffrey Boot.
Thank you, Andy. Yes, I agree with you. We shouldn't be discharging raw sewage into Peel Bay. It's an issue that we all know needs addressing, and we nearly got there this time round. This was an MU application, and a UK inspector who perhaps didn't understand the nuances of site selection decided that the MU had not considered other sites in sufficient detail. The good thing about this is the funding's there now. We have a plant that is designed, it's gone through the regulatory hurdles. All we need really is a site. And there are already several sites identified. Whether it will revert back to Glenfaba House or site I would favour would be down by the power station in Peel itself.
If a site were approved tomorrow, hypothetically, how long would it be before it would be operational?
Well, it obviously needs to go through the planning process, which in itself will take several months, but then it's down to the MU and their contractors to get stuck in. I mean, they can let the contract almost straight away, so it's down to the construction period.
Kate Lord-Brennan.
Just to take a step back, you asked why. I mean, really, in broad terms, it's because the regional sewage treatment strategy has not been able to be delivered. That's the bottom line on it. It's been promised that it would be quick. It's been promised that it would be cheap compared to other options. There's loads to say about this, but the key thing I would say now that for any regional strategy, we need to have, the costs need to include the extension of the outflow pipe and all year-round UV treatment. So that's why I've been calling for a full, open, transparent reappraisal of all options.
And what do people say on the doorstep to you?
Well, they say they want it sorted. That's what they say.
Ray Harmer.
Yes, so we've had many twists and turns. We now need to make it finally happen. There has been some progress. The money was got there. The strategies has been approved. We've got the Ragate leachate linked in. The design is done. The environmental impact assessment. The locations are there. I was insistent that the Northwest Plan should include that because that's important. So next time it comes to planning, that's taken into consideration. So we're on track for early 2022. We just need to all now get together, not reappraise old options, but really just all focus and make this thing happen.
Is Peel a vibrant and forward-looking place to live? Tim Crookall, banks, post offices?
No, it's a great shame that we've lost all the banks, and at the moment the post office is struggling as well. And we need to be very careful, and we need to make sure that we don't lose that. It is a great place to live, there's no doubt about that, but we need to be very careful that we need more employment in the town to make sure.
More and more houses keep being built all the time. Do you think, is it out of kilter? What's happened?
It hasn't been out of kilter up until now, I would say, because those houses have all been filled, and there was a worry at the beginning that those houses would be filled with people from outside of town, and yes, some of them have been, but a lot of those houses are filled with people, children of Peel people, and it's great to see that, Peel has extended up there, but we need to be very careful in the future as to any more extensions.
What can be done with Michael Street?
Michael Street needs everybody to work together, and that hasn't happened between the traders, the commissioners, the two MHKs we've got at the moment, and the constituency, if you like. There was no agreement, basically, and so we're still waiting to hear about the appeal at planning, but everybody needs to work together on this.
Trevor Cowan.
I was actually born in Ramsey, but brought up in Laxey. I thought Laxey was the most beautiful place in the world until I moved to Peel, and I've been here now for 50 years. And I think it is the most beautiful place in the world.
Is it a forward-looking place?
It is forward-looking. It's very vibrant. It is busy. I think it's busy because most people in the island they come to Peel because it is such a nice place. Who would want to go to Douglas Promenade, for example?
Okay.
Who would want to go to Ramsey Promenade? Who would want to go to Laxey Promenade? They're not as nice as Peel.
Jeffrey Boot.
Yes, Peel is looking a little shabby and it needs some regeneration. There are some good schemes that have been put through. The marina has made the harbour area look a lot more attractive. We've got the House of Manannan there, but we undersell ourselves sometimes. We need regeneration badly in Michael Street, and we need to link the promenade seafront harbour area to Michael Street. The appeal decision has already been made. It hasn't been made public yet, but that will have some bearing on a direction of travel. I worked hard initially with traders and other parties, including DOI, to try and come to a compromise with the scheme that was originally suggested. But sadly, that didn't come to fruition. But we're getting there, and I think we need to push hard to get it on.
Kate Lord-Brennan.
Well, people are telling me that they feel that Peel needs to be loved back to life, and they lament the lack of infrastructure to meet the growing population of Peel, and something that will meet the needs of Peel. I mean, I've actually come to the view that it would be much, better, instead of talking about the Northwest Area Plan, to talk about a vision for a town plan, that could be community-led and could have full engagement with people, even if it was just something that was attempted. Because I think you need buy-in and understanding of what people want, so that things can go forward and have a place where people have their needs met and they can be excited about again.
When the marina was built, obviously it regenerated down by the harbour, from the marine right round. Everything got a lot better. And, you know, there are big housing estates being built. And yet voters, and we get it on the Manning line, people don't understand why you can't join the dots together and get Michael Street. It could be a wonderful place.
It has proven to be a difficult scheme. I think certainly the people that I spoke to didn't really feel engaged with that process,
Yes.
so therefore it becomes divisive and people don't feel like they've got buy-in to it, and then it kind of falls flat. That's it in a nutshell.
Ray
really.
Harmer.
Yes, so there are lots of positive. Peel's are fantastic. It's vibrant. It has energy. There's lots of things. We're leading the way with the Western Wellbeing Centre. The Q2 STEM block's got funding for it. East Quay, which we talked about, the marina. All of that's going ahead later this autumn. So that whole piece of it is going to be regenerated. We've got obviously when the sewage plant is built, that's also there as well. We've had the doctor's surgery extended. We've had a new play park. We've had Westlands being rebuilt. So there's lots of things to be positive, and we've seen lots of creative new businesses come from Peel and also operate in new cafes and restaurants. And obviously was able to get the funding for Michael Street. We'll continue to, if elected, to pursue that and work with everybody to get a solution in that.
Leo Cousins.
The community of Peel is fantastic, and the people that live there and make the place, you know, are envied all over the island in some respects, and we enjoy, you know, the evening light and such. But let's not kid ourselves. It's not good. It's appalling. It's been badly represented. The list of projects is endless. If I was elected, I would certainly be asking for special dispensation, which I think is a reasonable request. We have an endless list of things that are not correct, and they're not even looked into.
Such as what?
Well, I mean, if we take, for example, at the beginning of the last government, we knew the situations with the silt in the harbour and such like. It's an embarrassing. I know that we don't directly pay for it, but it's embarrassing that we're in a situation which has cost, and I say alleged, but I think it's a reasonable thing to look at about £6 million on the last cost of moving it to the site in Peel, which still has no end solution. So we're not thinking sort of now, and we're not thinking in a couple of years' time. So we're just pushing these problems down the road, and it's unreasonable and unconscionable in a lot of respects.
OK, let's talk about healthcare and education in Peel and the likelihood of getting a GP appointment, and also the fact that Peel Cloth Workers is full to the brim. Trevor Cowan, what's your opinion?
Well, the Peel Cloth, the doctor's surgery first. I understand there's 6 doctors, but I understand also that those doctors are servicing the prison. Not quite sure why. That obviously has a knock-on effect on the reduction in doctors, and a knock-on effect on the waiting times to see a doctor. I think that's unreasonable. I can't see why the prison can't be serviced from Ramsey College Hospital, and I will be contacting Manx Care when I've got the time to do that, to ask them why that situation exists. What was the second part?
The rising roles in the schools in Peel and provision of education.
Well, the problem with the roles in school, they've always been rising, and it's never caught up with the number of houses. They build houses, and they've been building houses for the last 13 years, right? But they haven't really invested certainly in the cloth worker school, which is the primary school. They haven't put enough investment into that, and the classrooms are getting bigger all the time, and there must be more investment in the schools.
Jeffrey Boot.
Yes, obviously the STEM block at QE2 needs to be finished, and then I think they concentrate on the cloth workers. There's a big site there, and I think certainly from my point of view, I would like to see that extended and modernised. I don't think it's really fit for purpose with the number of pupils there are there now. When it comes to doctors, there's a nationwide shortage of doctors, and that applies to the UK. The Wellbeing Centre has come online, which is starting to join things up in social care as well. There's a big extension to Peel Surgery, which will allow nursing staff and what have you to carry out some of the services that doctors do at the moment. But I agree with you, the waiting times are too long, and it's a nation thing, not just a Peel.
Kate Lord-Brennan.
Well, there's been a lack of investment in this area, social care, residential care. On the point of the schools, you know, I'm advocating for an investment in an expansion of Peel Cloth Workers. It's definitely needed. I'm, you know, well informed on that. And also on the doctor's point, I'm concerned to understand what's happening with the issues with the GPs and the appointments, kind of really what is really behind that, because I fear it could be a growing issue, not just here.
Seems to be going backwards.
It does. I mean, and what I feel as well is that integrated healthcare needs to work properly. It's supposed to be a blueprint for the rest of the island. It needs to work to serve the needs of the community in a real way.
Ray Harmer.
Yes, so the Western Wellbeing Centre is a real going forward for the whole of the island. It's a real lightning rod and something that will be copied, and it is the way forward in terms of integrated care that's focused around the individual. Obviously, doctors' extension was a real positive, but obviously there is a shortage of doctors globally. But I do think we need to look at wellbeing in a wider context, and also look at to see how we look at care much more. We need to look at doctors and how we always need to go to doctors. Sometimes it can be a nurse or whatever, and we look at a much more sophisticated way of dealing with care. Q2 STEM block is a really good project, which also will allow entrepreneurship and innovation amongst young children. But of course, cloth work is another area that needs to be extended.
Leo Cousins.
Yeah, I mean, when I was talking to people particularly in New Peel, they spoke about the need for proper, so maintaining their own health, so being able to exercise, so making those sort of running courses, running tracks, reduction possibly of cars, or working that into a sort of environment where everyone could sort of benefit from that. And of course we know that evidence shows that of course people having proper active lifestyles does maintain our own health, and then it goes also into mental health, so also enabling the other options that are around that will increase our mental health. So it's very important that we make it vibrant and safe.
Okay, Tim Crookall.
There's obviously an issue with the doctor's services. You know, everybody's saying 3 to 4 weeks, especially in Peel, to get to see the doctor, and that's after being triaged on the phone and all sorts of things. Maybe we just need to start looking outside the block, and maybe doctor surgeries need to be working together, providing specialities and things amongst themselves. It needs a bit of blue sky thinking here, because as somebody's just said, you know, there's a national shortage of doctors, so let's go back and revisit it again and get the professionals involved, talk to the professionals and see what can be done. I don't believe that's been done. As far as the education is concerned, I think we've got 2 very, very good schools here in Peel that both probably need some sort of extension. Yes, the STEM block's coming. It's been coming for years. Since I was in education, that was put in the books. And the cloth workers will have something in the foreseeable future, but we've just got to make sure it's fit for purpose.
Okay, we're nearly halfway through, so if you could be brief with this. Climate change and action on the Isle of Man. Geoffrey Boot.
Well, I put the climate change bill through Keys. It's a pragmatic approach that will see net zero carbon by 2050 or earlier. We're already in phase 1. We've just consulted on phase 2. We've got a citizens forum. We're trying to bring the community with us. There's a lot of work to do. We need to look at future energy production on the island, and that is a decision that will have to be made fairly early in the next administration.
Kate Lord-Brennan, does this come up on the doorstep, climate change?
It doesn't actually, that often I'm being completely honest, but clearly it's something the Isle of Man has to deal with, and we need to do as much as we can, as soon as we can, but we need to be very smart about how resources are applied and how decisions are made.
Do you think people are bothered about it?
I think they are, yes. You know, but it's probably something that is not, when you say, okay, I'm calling round, what are the issues? It's not, honestly, something that gets repeated to me. So there needs to be leadership, buy-in, engagement on this process. So, because everybody is going to have a role to play.
Ray Harmer.
Yeah, so one of the things that I was able to bring in was the Green Living Grant, which will help to support putting in better heating and insulation, up to £6,000 and 50% grant, which will also stimulate the economy, as well as providing green solutions and reducing carbon. But I do think there's things that we can do very simply, and it's all about new builds. So, for example, all government buildings should have solar panels, new builds should have incorporated solar energy. But this is a journey. There's a big action plan. There's many things that need to be done, and some exciting things to do with our seas and blue carbon, and developing planted seagrasses to sequester carbon.
Okay, specialist subject, Leo Cousins, Green Party.
Yes, so surprisingly, there's so many problems in Peel that, of course, people are concerned with a lot of different things. I don't think they have an issue with climate change, but it's not being talked about on the doorstep, and understandably why. So we have to solve those problems first. When we go out and enlarge into Glenfaba, I mean, people get it, and they understand it, they see the advantages. I mean, we're well aware that our emissions don't change levels worldwide, but the sense in doing it is, of course, it will lower our costs, it will make it easier to heat our homes, and we've got to be a part of the larger community. So a lot of it is what I frame as common sense, and people get that.
Do you think the government's done enough?
I was quite surprised by the last report. They didn't have it at the beginning of the last administration. We as the Green Party have advocated along with a lot of third-party organisations, and we've now got something.
On a day-to-day basis, I mean, what do you think, how does the government's green initiative affect people on the Isle of Man in Peel, Glenfaba?
Well, there's different aspects.
Is there recycling in Peel?
No, that's a great disappointment. So there is obviously private, but there's not proper recycling as we'd like to see. That is an issue that people do want to see. I mean, that is something that they notice that a friend comes to visit or something, they say, oh, where do I put this? And of course, well, don't manage to put it all in one bin. The cost of it, of course, I mean, a lot of, like I said, go back to common sense about this. The cost of waste management is more than a third of your rates. So it's an enormous cost. So if we can get that under control, then you've got all sorts of possibilities, aside from the fact, of course, our oceans and general litter.
Tim Crookall.
Climate change has certainly been raised as a subject on the doorstep, and the environmental issues. People understand, people know we've got to do something, be seen to be doing our bit. We're not going to cure the problem in the world, we're only a tiny little part of it, but we need to be seen to be doing our bit, and we could be world leaders. But people want clear explanations of what's going on, what they're going to do, and some big decisions to be made in the very near future with regards to the change in the power stations here and where do we go to after that. Tidal power has raised its head probably more than ever before now, and more people want us to look at that. Ray, I think, just mentioned about solar panels, and government should put them on every building. Laxey School this summer is having a new school, or this summer had a new roof on its school. They didn't put it on there. Why not? Absolutely brilliant opportunity to do it, didn't happen. But yes, we need more green schemes for the future to help people.
How long do you think Peel Power Station's got?
Well, according to MUA, it's roughly about 10 years, I think, and Douglas is about 15. So we've got to make some big decisions very quickly because time is going to run out.
Trevor Cowan.
None of the constituents that I've spoken to have any concerns about climate change. And when I've pressed them about it, the main concern is the cost. £40 million over the next 14 years is a lot of money. And but the issue of climate change is one that divides opinion. Tynwald has approved a climate change transformation programme, which at the moment must be followed despite the costs committed so far of 40 million. Whether the new administration will prioritise the current stated aim of achieving no less than 75% of the island's electricity from renewable resources within the next 14 years remains to be seen. I doubt very much that it will achieve that. In line with international agreements, however, I believe that taking into account our particular circumstances, we should do our fair share to reduce greenhouse gas emissions and adapt to the changing climate in the most cost-effective way. I do, however, wonder how efficiently government can make meaningful change when the transformation programme will be led by a project board consisting of 7 politicians, along with a 9-strong steering group, including the chief executives of all government departments, who will collectively manage a team of 10 civil servants who will actually deliver the programme.
Okay. Johnny, before we get to questions from the audience, we've got a couple of minutes, so a swift yes-no answer. We did this in Garth last night. Should we accept Afghan refugees? Ray Harmer.
Yes, but it depends whether they're actually, there could be other alternatives about financial help, so it's not it's more important for them to actually get out of Afghanistan, if you see what I mean. Is there a need for them where they should go? That's the issue. And also, could financial help be a better alternative?
Leo Cousins.
Yes, in principle. We've got to look at what, I have no idea what our capacity is, but I'm sure that the people do want to help people. We need to enable that possibility that people can care. And I know that obviously some people have even talked about offering their homes and such like that. We need to be a sharp government and look at things in that respect. We are a caring nation.
Tim Crookall.
Yes, I think we should. I personally think that some of these people are very well educated in that, and there's no reason why we shouldn't take our fair share. We've had forces people go out there to work in Afghanistan, defend Afghanistan, die in Afghanistan, and I think they would probably want the same as well for Afghan refugees to come here.
Trevor Cowan.
I had this question put to me by Isle of Man newspapers recently, and I gave a fairly lengthy reply, well, a short reply in the end, but it was fairly lengthy. The Isle of Man is not best placed to receive an influx of refugees. We haven't got the infrastructure for them. We haven't got the housing for them. We haven't got, if we need interpreters, we haven't got interpreters for them. We haven't got school places for their children. And if anybody wants to bring them here, then I would say yes, bring them here. But if there were people who are clamouring to bring them here, they should provide homes for them and they should provide their funding.
Okay, Geoffrey Boot.
Yeah, well, we had this question and we discussed this in Tynwald when it came to the Syrian refugees, and we were advised at that time by the UK government that we were unable to offer the facilities that are required to deal with refugees. So I remain to be convinced that as a small island community we could take refugees, and I would look to the UK for advice on that. But we're a compassionate island, and I think we stand ready to do our bit.
Kate Lord-Brennan.
I think that it's probably inevitable that over the next administration, that one after that the matter to do with refugees and the island's role will have to be looked at, and then that's when you get to the what and the how. But obviously there is a humanitarian and a caring aspect to that, you know, some of the points that Tim has mentioned.
Okay, jolly good. Right, 7:30, and we're live tonight at Peel Golf Club for Glenfaba and Peel with candidates Geoffrey Boot, Trevor Cowan, Tim Crookall, Leo Cousins, Ray Harmer. Mikey Lee is not with us tonight. Kate Lord-Brennan is with us. And now questions from the audience. Your name and your question.
I'm Phil Matthews. This follows on nicely from your last question. It is internationally recognised that all well-run wealthy nations should be able to contribute 0.7% of their gross national income towards international aid without any impact on the provision of services for their own people. Some people think our 0.05% contribution is too much. This is one of the smallest percentage contributions of anywhere in the world, and instead of arguing over how it could be better spent here on island, shouldn't we be asking ourselves if there might be something wrong with how we manage the wealth we already have when providing for our own basic public services?
Tim Crookall.
I think 0.7% is the accepted figure, and we should carry on doing that. We do have an issue, though, with regards to looking after our own here on the island, obviously. In my manifesto, and I mentioned earlier, I think that we should look at reducing the numbers in Tynwald, and that saving could go towards feeding those on island, helping to home those on island. But yes, I think that 0.7 is a figure that we should be sticking with.
Reducing the number in Tynwald.
0.05 that we pay.
Oh, sorry.
We are on 0.05, not 0.7.
It was, yes. What used to be 0.0.
Okay,
yes.
what do you mean reducing numbers in Tynwald?
Sorry, it's in my manifesto, and I've said it before in Tynwald. I'm not just electioneering now on this. I've said it twice in Tynwald before. I think there is not a need for 33 members of Tynwald, and if you reduced it by 4, at least a saving of £1.2 million and the ongoing pension liability, and you can use that then for whatever you need.
Okay, very quickly, if we can, then the 0.7, the gentleman's question.
In principle, yes. Giving or being a part, if we want to be a part of the world and attract business, international business, we are wealthy. We have vast resources. It is good for our health to involve, to be a part of these things. We see the things on TV. We can't just sit back and say we're not part of that.
Ray Harmer.
Yes, in principle, and certainly one of the things, so for example, the vaccine programme, the COVAX programme, which the island has given into and that I've been part of, that's really important because that shows you that vaccines for everybody in the world helps the whole world to do better. And also I think more educational resources to understand international development in schools so people understand the world and their place in the world. So that's definitely something.
Kate Lord-Brennan.
Yeah, I think people are concerned about public funds and you know, how the economic activity is supporting that. I had read something say where I thought it was 0.6, so I may be wrong, but I think in any case, I think it is 2.5 million a year,
right.
I think. Now, I think we should be concerned with how that money is applied rather than sort of should it be a certain percentage or not, so that we can see that there is genuine value and impact, which is clearly important in the island's role to contribute, but we need to know how and what, not just to tick a box, is my view.
Trevor Cowan.
I've expressed very strong views about this in letters in the paper in the past. I'm all in favour of foreign aid as long as it's coming in our direction. At a time when we're recovering from the pandemic and the substantial costs involved in that, and we've got food banks, We've got homeless people. I really think it's irresponsible to be giving £2.5 million a year away to a foreign country where we don't know where it will end up. It may end up in the wallets of the people who lead these countries. I just think it's irresponsible.
Jeffrey Boot.
Well, we've heard earlier about the demands on infrastructure, the National Health Service at home, and all the things that need doing here. I am in favour of foreign aid, but charity sometimes begins at home. And when we look at £2.5–3 million a year going off Ireland, when I'm looking and have been facing as a minister cuts to various services in the hundreds of thousands that will affect people directly, I am concerned. But I wouldn't like to cut the present level, but I think it needs to be really well focused. And I should say that people on the Isle of Man are very generous on the charitable front, and a lot of people give to different charities on Ireland and for use off Ireland. So that percentage that we're giving of GDP, as it were, may be enhanced by private contributions made elsewhere.
Your name, sir, and your question.
Mike Derber. If our financial centre or gaming centre or any ways that we have of raising revenue at the moment got a hit, where would the panel raise their money for the future?
Kate Lord-Brennan.
Well, something that has been outstanding for the most part of this administration has been an economic plan from the Department for Enterprise. Thankfully now there is a plan that's in development and coming forward as a result of a Treasury initiative. So we need to look to diversify the economy. That's really important, so that we're not heavily reliant just on one sector. I don't think we need to be negative or overly concerned about particular aspects, but clearly we need to be on a good footing so that there is more options.
I don't want to put words in the gentleman's mouth, but obviously we're very reliant on e-gaming. And if that changed tomorrow, wherever the server is where people pay tax. So that could change. It could go to Kazakhstan tomorrow. I mean, do you think government's have they got a plan B? Do they know where the next big thing is?
Well, there's a lot of emphasis around digital, which broadens out the reliance on gaming, and a lot of the skills and the businesses that are involved in gaming, can and do apply in a much broader way for an active digital sector.
Ray Harmer.
Thank you. Yes, so being part of the Economic Recovery Group, last year we were looking at the meltdowns in certain sectors and the potential 5,000 people being unemployed. Obviously, we've got that down to under 400. A lot of that is through being a flexible workforce, by retaining capacity, retraining, internships, and also looking at always the new things, so diversifying the economy. So, for example, in financial services, in medicinal cannabis is another one, looking into financial service deals with New Zealand and Japan and places like that. But it's our ability to innovate, and it's our skills that are the absolute key part of this. And as we continue diversity, make the economy more diverse, then we can, we can recover from any shocks in any one sector.
Okay, Leo Cousins.
Diversification and innovation are definitely the answers. It's great what we have, but I suppose in short, because I have to give a quick answer, I see the Isle of Man, the tourism, it's the beauty, it's the biosphere, it's the nature, it's the fact that it's something better than you get elsewhere, and I think that's our really greatest asset. And I think if we look at that in regards to farming, in regards to food and drink products and beverages and such like, we have some great possibilities there, and a real simple example.
Tim Crookall.
A diversified economy will help, and it does help, and that's why we've been so successful for nearly 35 years every year, except for 1 year during this last administration's watch. E-gaming at the moment is very well regulated, and that's why it still continues to grow. These companies now look for well-regulated places, and that's why the island is still successful, and the same with the finance. The island is also very good at being fleet of foot, and if we see changes needed, it does happen for the benefit of the island. We have a lot of high skills here on the island, people with a really good skill set, and we should be using them more probably and taking their advice.
Trevor Cowan.
Yes, it was revealed last night at a meeting in Foxdale that the island has £800 billion worth of gas reserves just to the south of the island. I believe that if they were exploited, that would create tremendous income to replace the lost income that you're talking about.
So you would be for exploiting the gas field?
Absolutely.
Okay.
Oh, well, and that's in line with government policy, which they announced in October 2018.
Okay, and would that in any way harm our green agenda, or...?
No. In 2018, they were looking at gas reserves off the east coast, but that involved fracking.
Where would the gas be would it be brought ashore to the Isle of Man?
It would be brought ashore to the Isle of Man and create jobs and income.
Okay. Approximately where on the Isle of Man would it be brought ashore?
Well, I haven't actually got the exact details, but I do know it's to the southwest of the island, and it's within our territorial waters, and basically it's our reserves.
And would you anticipate any problems in getting planning to put a gas
government
centre?
has agreed that we should exploit our reserves, right? So government has the power to override any planning considerations.
Jeffrey Boot.
Well, we are already quite a diverse economy compared to the Channel Isles, for instance. We have manufacturing and a lot of traditional industry that goes on Ireland, but we are a very compliant jurisdiction, and that's attractive to people coming here. If you look at what's happening at the moment, the COVID has presented opportunities. We're an excellent place to live. Biosphere was mentioned. I mean, it's a wonderful place to live. You can do nearly everything within a 10-15 minute journey. And from what I understand, we're starting to see interest in the island from people, senior people, businesses, where they can work remotely and be anywhere in the world. But the Isle of Man it might be a preferred destination.
Are you confident about the future, Mr. Boot?
Yes, I am. I really am.
Next question. Your name and the question.
It's Jenny Kenyuk. What are your thoughts or plans regarding the future of public sector pensions?
Tim Crookall.
There is allegedly, and we've talked about it several times this week, this big black hole issue, but that only happens if everybody walks out of government at the same time. We've seen over the last few years changes within government pensions to everybody in government, from Tynwald members right the way across the board. The issue is now being resolved. I think they're looking at people's final salary pensions and trying to come out with what is best. It's not resolved yet by any stretch of the imagination, but I believe in the next probably 10 years, and that sounds like an awful long time, but this issue has been going on probably now or it's been known about for probably 30 years that it was an issue, but it's only been dealt with in the last probably 15 years. But I believe it will be sorted in the next 10 years.
Trevor Cowan.
I agree entirely with what Tim has just said. We have what was referred to as a legacy of debt for the pension fund, but it's not really a debt. It's simply a liability which continues to grow. And unless you have to meet that liability, and you don't unless everybody retires at the same time, it's not really a big issue.
Jeffrey Boot.
Well, it is a big issue, but it's one that's spread out over a long period of time. This current administration has looked at this and made adjustments agreed through Tynwald, and the public sector pensions have been reformed considerably, which will make them more affordable and more comparable to the private sector going forward. But it's a slow burn, because you can't suddenly turn people off and tell them they can't have the pensions that they've been paying into forever and a day. But final salary pensions and things like that will be a thing of the past. We should always remember that pensions throughout the Western world are paid from current account rather than reserves in most countries, and we have sufficient current account to cover our pension deficit. So there's not this impending disaster that was projected some years ago.
But people often look on the downside, and if the wheels fell off the economy, then the pensions would, and the pensions couldn't be paid or couldn't be met. What would happen then?
Well, we do have reserves. I think we started the pandemic with something like 1.2 billion, which includes the NI fund. We've spent some of that, obviously, during the COVID period, supporting business, as we should, and people and families, and the health service, and that will replenish. I don't think the wheels will ever fall completely off the economy in that way. The island's weathered some storms in the past, and in fact, as Ray said earlier, we started this administration with more people unemployed than we have now. So the economy is fairly strong.
Okay. Leo Cousins.
You have to make a deal that's going to work. If you look at, for young people, they are the people that are going to be paying this as it's going forward. So there's a responsibility for the older people and the older generation to say, what kind of deal can we make going forward that's going to work for everybody? It isn't generally fair, and I think people can sort of see some of that. It wasn't done right, and the current strategy is, I would argue, failing. It's failing. They intended to increase the active working population, They haven't managed to do that, and that is absolutely key. That is how we meet our liability. So we need to focus upon those sort of areas, and that's quite a task.
Ray Harmer.
Thank you. So last year I took forward a very important reform, and that was really important because what that did was create a cost envelope. So now what people put in is what they get. So as the liability changes, the cost of pensions or what people pay in will increase. So that actually puts a cap or a stop on any future liabilities. What we can't do with anything about is the short term where people are retiring over the next 10 years. But certainly what that stops is it massively reduces that. So what people pay in is what they get. In addition, we've just introduced a voluntary defined contribution scheme, and what that does is instead of having the defined benefits, it's on what you on what you pay out. So they are the reforms that are ongoing and have massively changed the pension or the public pension.
Kate Lord-Brennan.
Well, I'm afraid that the reforms haven't gone far enough, and I'm also of the view that Tynwald voted the wrong way in 2019 when it was decided to not close the defined benefit contribution scheme for the public sector. Now, I would hasten to add that this is not about turning off pensions for current public service workers. It's not about that at all. What it's about, the idea that you would have people on a defined contribution scheme is something that would be much more fair, much more equitable, have much more parity with the private sector. So I think that's the way it needs to be balanced out. And I think that it is an issue when you see that there are we're reading that there's 4.8 billion in this public sector pension liability. Clearly, the public sector provision for new civil service joiners needs to be much more in line with what is generally acceptable.
Okay, tonight we're at Glenfaba Peel for the Manx Radio constituency debate, and when I said that the wheels may come off, remember, nobody thought the wheels would come off tourism in 1979. Sir, your name and question.
I'm sorry if I'm...
Oh, you're back again, yes, for
yes,
more.
I'm back again, yeah, Mike Derber. Would the panel work as politicians running the Isle of Man for a basic working wage?
Kate Lord-Brennan.
It's the idea that you could carry out a full political role in the way that you've described there would in effect mean that it would be only for people who could afford to do it. So that's the reality. You don't want to go to a time when it is in effect, an elitist career for someone that can do it. They're already wealthy and they can just do it on the side. The commitment and the level of activity and important decisions that are needed, that means that there needs to be pay associated with that.
Geoffrey Boot.
Well, a lot of political work used to be voluntary, but I think as Kate alludes to, if we want to be inclusive and make it open to everyone to participate, then you have to pay a salary that is appropriate to the role to enable people to engage. For some people, the salary we get at the moment are aspirational. For others, in top high-flying jobs, it would be a salary cut. But it's a very complex subject.
Okay, Trevor Cowan.
I agree with what Geoffrey just said, actually. I think was the question...
It was a question about working for the basic minimum wage, basically, for the basic minimum wage and almost charity, really, do politics for charity.
I don't think that would work. If you want to attract people with the intelligence and the brain to run the country, most people would want something.
It used to be the case that rich businessmen used to be MHKs in their part-time.
That was a very, very long time ago. The times have changed, and the Tynwald has just reviewed the salaries for MHKs. My concern is that under the new pay structure, I think it's now £60,000 for an MHK, but they don't get any more if they
become a member of the
department. And more importantly, who would take on the DOI for £6,500 a year extra?
Tim Crookall.
Yes, it would take us back to the good old days, as you said just now, Andy, about people who already had wealth behind them. Then they would be the only ones that would take this on. So I think that, you've got to have a realistic way to attract the people to do the job. Otherwise, you'll end up with nobody being able to afford from the lower end of the market, if you like, who need a lifetime of looking after their families and supporting their families. But totally understand your question there.
Okay, Ray Harmer.
Yeah, I think if you want to attract the people into the roles and get a good set of candidates, you have to have a sort of a remuneration that's going to do that. And I think if you don't do that, you will just limit the pool of those who can actually.
Leo Cousins.
I think it's a question that comes down to ethics. Obviously, we don't pay our judges minimum wage because they add a certain value to the service that they perform. I can understand people feel frustrated about the differences in societies. You need to look at your politicians and you need to ask questions about ethics and what ethics they hold and how they operate those ethics. Because every decision that they make from their manifesto, it comes from ethics. You can see that on the Green Party website.
Okay, we're going to be very quick. Your name and question, please.
My name's Linda. I'm concerned about the falling birth rate, which we've known about for quite some time. Maternity benefits haven't been raised for 10 years. We have problems with housing for young people, with young people still living with parents and because they can't get onto the housing ladder. How would the panel actually prioritise that?
Okay, we have to race through this because we're running out of time. Tim Crookall.
With regards to falling birth rate, I'm afraid there's nothing I can do about that, so I've done my bit. But it is a huge issue, I know, and it is one that government is aware of, and we'll have to sort of work with and just plan for the future. But it's one, as I say, government is aware of and we'll need to deal with.
Trevor Cowan.
Well, I share Tim's view. I'm 72 now, and I can't do anything about the falling birth rate either. As far as housing is concerned, there's been a recent review of the the government support scheme. I don't think that's gone far enough, and I think the level of government support should be provided should be increased, and it's imperative young people aren't priced out of the market. A consideration should be given to the feasibility of introducing restrictions on property ownership, based possibly on residency similar to that in the Channel Islands.
Jeffrey Boot.
Thank you. My daughter's done her bit. My son has yet to do his bit in increasing population. I think the key issue is we need to attract more people to the island, younger working people, but we also need to attract our graduates and people that qualify across back to the island. I would advocate and want to have a national housing strategy that will look at all the issues around provision of housing.
Ray Harmer.
Yes, a number of things. Obviously, improved child benefit is one of them. Improved preschool credits for schools, but also increasing unaffordable housing, things like a deposit guarantee scheme where the government guarantees the deposit, and also some of those initiatives like the Development Corporation that was set up to develop new housing for and areas such as the old nurses block in Douglas and things like that could provide increased housing. So it's increasing the supply, it's looking at our planning system and also more work on affordable housing.
Kate Lord Brennan.
Young people and growing families needs a proper focus, I think. And it's interesting the responses that we've had. It's sort of in a jokey way, but actually it's a really difficult issue to talk about. This issue that is referred to as the low fertility rate. So, my view is that you need to have a proper look at the sort of policies that would make a difference to this. I would definitely support an increase to maternity allowance. However, I don't just think it's about benefits, but we need a proper, clear and positive offering for young people and mums and babies.
Very quickly, if you can, Leo Cousins.
Yes, so the very interesting points. Maternity pay, it is the biggest issue. Society depends upon us getting this right. Peel does us proud. Our schools are packed, so we're pleased in that respect. But maternity pay needs to be increased. The whole question around that and how we look after children, we need to create an environment where families can do that and have the freedom and that it works for both partners in a modern democracy.
Now comes the time where the candidates have 1 minute to talk to you, their voters, as to why they should be one of the two MHKs for Glenfaba and Peel. Kate Lord Brennan.
I will work to serve the people and fight for the interests of this constituency and the best interests of the island. I can see what needs to be fixed and focused on. We need systematic change, and I will work with others in an endeavour to ensure that people are at the heart of policy making and at the forefront of effective service delivery if those decisions come my way. No doubt the issues are major on a national and a local level, but I believe now is a chance for a reset of approach, a fresh direction which is positive and grassroots grasped opportunity amidst challenge. That is why I say we need to renew, to revive and reform. We can do this. I give my commitment to pursue this in the service of Glenfaba and Peel and the island if elected. I have what it takes. Back me, back the change that we need by voting for me, Kate Lord-Brennan, on the 23rd of September.
Mikey Lee is not with us tonight. Ray Harmer.
Thank you. My approach is to be open, honest and ready to listen. I believe in making the island an even better place for everyone. As Policy and Reform Minister, I've been looking to re-energise our economy following COVID-19, securing jobs and seizing new opportunities through technology and green initiatives. I believe in putting people first and caring for individuals. For me, constituency work is of the highest importance, giving people a voice in Tynwald and helping them in the day-to-day. I believe in not avoiding difficult challenges, but embracing and solving them. I was able to engage with others to acquire funding in 2019 for desperately needed sewage plant in Peel. The location is to be approved in early 2022 and construction should start later in the year. Over the last 6 years, I've gained valuable experiences of the processes of government, which can be frustrating at times, but it's knowing how to navigate and persevere to get a policy adopted or a project completed for the benefit of our community. I hope that you'll continue to trust me to represent you well and vote for me on September the 23rd.
From the Green Party, Leo Cousins.
Thank you all for tonight. It's greatly appreciated. If you do not vote Green now, perhaps we never will. If you do not vote to rebuild the Corran home, the opportunity will go. If you do not vote to stop corruption and cronyism, it will not stop. If you do not vote for a proper bus service, we will never get one. If you do not vote for the young in mind, they will leave the island. If you do not vote for a campaign for responsibility in government, it will never happen. If you do not vote to protect the biosphere and enshrine it in law, we will have no nature. If we do not solve the housing and the problem associated with it, then our society will fail. I have great faith in the residents of Glenfaba and Peel to engage in these issues and help others do the same in making a choice in being part of a new era of health, prosperity and community. On the 23rd of September, I have 2 words for you. Vote Leo.
Tim Crookall.
I have a lot of experience, energy, enthusiasm and personal skills to offer the people of Glenfaba and Peel and the Isle of Man, and that is why I put my name forward as a candidate in this election. Please do not forget how this outgoing government has let us down with overspending, longer waiting lists, broken promises, minimal maintenance and bigger public sector workforce, and over £45 million added to the public sector's salary over the last 5 years. I would ask you to consider supporting me so I can support you and support the constituency and the island for the next 5 years. On the 23rd of September, please support me to support you.
Trevor Cowan.
Efficient local use of our resources together with truthful, open and accessible governance without blind bureaucracy is my goal. I have the knowledge to address the things that need to change, the courage to expose the issues which require changing, and the wisdom and breadth of knowledge of the workings of government to ask you for your trust to make it happen. I'm tenacious, I'm incorruptible, I'm direct, I'm honest, I'm experienced and I'm passionate. I hope you'll vote for me.
Jeffrey Boot.
Thank you, Andy. I'll keep it fairly simple. I'd reiterate that I come from a commercial business background, which enables me to bring a commercial as well as compassionate imperative to politics. I have a great passion for the Isle of Man, its people and the environment, and as a long-term resident of the West, believe that we can, working together, make the West the best. I support local businesses and I've been involved in developing businesses through my role in DEFA. The essence of a good politician is one that can join all the strands as we recover from COVID. I'm very enthusiastic about setting the agenda for a new programme for government that will reflect today's realities and your aspirations. I sincerely hope that you, the electors, will give me an opportunity to do this. Thank you.
Ladies and gentlemen of Glenfaba and Peel, thank you for attending tonight. A week next Thursday, you will make the choice. You'll decide which of these 5, and remember, which of the 6, sorry, Mikey Lee, of course, isn't with us. There are 7 candidates. And remember, you have 2 votes. The second one, just as important, possibly even more important than the first vote. You may know who your first choice is, but maybe tonight's helped you decide who your second choice is. And this isn't the final word. Remember, the final word is from the people around here. They are your candidates. There are no MHKs anymore. These are your candidates. These are the people who will be your voice in Tynwald, in Keys, in the next 5 years. So I urge you to speak to them, maybe speak to them tonight, maybe when they come on your doorstep, to chat to them, find out exactly what they represent and question them deeply. Now remember, there have been 2 what they used to call requisition meetings. There's one left, and it's Wednesday the 15th. It'll be at QE2 High School, Wednesday the 15th from 7 until 9. So go along there as well. And as has often been said, if you don't vote, you can't moan. So thank you for being with us tonight. Thanks to our candidates. Thanks to all the technical team here at Manx Radio. I'm Andy Wint, and tonight we've been live at Peel Golf Club.